Good evening, everyone, and welcome to tonight's Yountville Town Council meeting for Tuesday, May 21st, 2019. Welcome to those in the audience here at the Town Hall, and for those of you watching at home. I'll start with roll call, please.
Thank you. Councilmember Dornbecker?
Here.
Councilmember Durham?
Here.
Councilmember Moeller?
Here.
Vice Mayor Dorman?
Here.
Mayor Dunbar?
Here. Please join us in the Pledge of Allegiance. Next up is the adoption of our agenda for this evening. I don't believe we have any changes, so is there a motion to adopt?
I move that we adopt the agenda.
Thank you.
Second.
Please cast your votes. 5-0. Yes, thank you very much. Okay, next item, public comment. So this is a chance for anyone that is here, and I know we have people here, to address the council on items that are not on tonight's agenda. We'll welcome that input. Since we don't have a large crowd, normally we do hold it to 3 minutes, but we can extend that to make sure that everybody does have an opportunity. And I think Debbie is going to be first since she's already moving forward to the podium. Welcome.
Hello. I know the council, but I don't know everyone here, so I'll just repeat. My name is Debbie Alterstar. I live in Yountville. I've lived here since 1993. And I had written ahead to the council members to ask that we put this question of raising the rainbow flag, or the desire for our community to raise the rainbow flag, and I prefer hopefully also the transgender flag for part of the month of June in our town, to support pride in our community members, our families, our guests, for LGBTQ identities. And I forgot to bring up. As I shared in my note, my mother-in-law, this is Adele, and her husband Larry, my father-in-law, they're both passed. My mother-in-law was one of the co-founders of Parents and Friends of Gays and Lesbians, along with a mother who's better well known in New York. And Adele was the first president of PFLAG for 10 years. Larry got them incorporated, was their treasurer. They're our legacy, and their granddaughter, my child, has always been very proud of this heritage and has always identified as queer one way or another, and as I shared, is now identified as transgender. So this is why, for me, it's so important. I can't even tell you in words how much it would mean to my adult child to come home in June from college and to see these flags. And, you know, for most communities, they're just pushing for the rainbow flag, and that's fine, but I really want the transgender flag because this is a child born and raised in Yountville. And we're living in a time where it's not super welcoming in some respects lately, not here, but we all know what's going on in our community, our country. And I do have to worry about my kiddo going to bathrooms as they make a road trip across the country with their dad. You know, not everyone's going to relate to that issue. You don't always relate until it's your own young person. So as I shared with some of my friends and colleagues here, we've already discussed this a little bit, that it's going to be put on the agenda for June. It's going to be proposed by some of the council members, and thank you, to be put on the agenda for June and looked at. And a unique factor of our town is that our town hall is not the center of town. Our community center is the center of town. So for the purposes of consistency, other speakers will be asking, and I support that, to raise the flag on a flagpole for city government. Personally, my greatest goal is that it's where we can see it. So that would be our community center, and perhaps we can do both. We also have these flagpoles, or banner poles on the side of town. Over time, that would be a nice addition to have something for Pride Week, if that's something some of us can write these small grants for. And then the entrance to town is always another place where we display banners. So for me, it's a little less about the flagpole, because this is not the center of where people drive their cars or walk. But I support this valley-wide effort to work together in our communities to make them even more welcoming. So that's the end of my comments, and I think this is actually about kindness. It's about mental health. It's about civil rights. It's about all neighbors feeling welcome here. And frankly, I don't give a hoot if it makes some people uncomfortable. Too bad. Taking down the flag might be a different issue, but too bad if some people otherwise feel uncomfortable. I'm tired of that. I get afraid even just to say that I'm Jewish because I don't know who it'll make uncomfortable. We have to be better than that. So thank you for letting me share.
Thank you. And I know we have other speakers that will be coming up. Just so you're aware, those of you that aren't normally in the audience, we aren't able to get into a full-on dialogue during public comment. Know that Councilmember Durham and others at the dais already plan on addressing us later during our council remarks. So you may not hear full response from us right now, but we will be taking that up, and I think Councilmember Durham is I'm expecting him to make that formal request about agendizing this for a meeting in June, potentially June 4. So yes, welcome. Please, if you would identify yourself.
Yes, hi. My name is Carla Marquez, and I'm the spouse of a hospitality employee here in Yountville. I also formerly worked here in Yountville down the street at Vintage, and it was some of the best years of my hospitality career. It was amazing. I'm here today because I'm here as part of a county-wide movement to raise not only awareness, but visibility of a community that has often told us that they feel unwelcomed, unwanted, and in many ways just not visible in our county. We are here actually because we're not asking for a change in the way that this city works. We're asking for a visible demonstration of what this city represents. We want to show people that we are inclusive, loving, and supporting of all of our welcome guests, and that they're welcomed here as part of our home. We are asking to raise a rainbow flag and the transgender flag for the month of June for Pride Month. I'm here because as a legal services professional in Napa County, I have had very painful conversations with some of our Napa County residents about how they're left out of services and out of the conversation of how to plan around resources in Napa County. I'm also here as a former hospitality professional because I've had the opportunity to welcome many LGBTQ and members of the community who say that they feel welcomed here, who say that they feel like this is a place that fully understands that they're here to have fun, that they're here to be part of an experience, and they feel embraced by us. So I understand that you will be adding this to the agenda, and I've also brought a copy of the City of Calistoga's policy regarding the flagpole. And I wanted to share this with you. I'll leave this with the town clerk so that you have an opportunity to review it as an example of one of the cities in Napa Valley that has already taken this step. And tonight we're hoping that City of Napa will also take the step and that American Canyon will continue to move forward with that. So thank you very much for welcoming us and look forward to the vote.
Thank you. If you'd offer that to our town clerk. Thank you. Yes. Welcome. There's a button in the front right of the podium itself. You could also. We just like to do that every now and then.
It's cool for the viewers to see the thing raising too, the podium raised.
We paid for that, so we want to use it every now and then.
Awesome. Anyways, good evening, Mayor Dunbar and Yountville Town Council members. My name is Alex Shantz. I'm a third-generation Napa Valley resident, and I served on the St. Helena School Board from 2014 to 2016. I'm here to sort of speak on behalf of a loose-knit online Facebook group that's been going around, and they're asking the Napa County Board of Supervisors, along with American Canyon, Napa, Yountville, St. Helena, and Calistoga City Councils to fly the rainbow flag. And also I'll echo the request to fly the transgender flag as well. But in any case, to fly the rainbow flag at City Hall during Pride Month, which is next June. The rainbow flag is a symbol for lesbian, gay, bisexual, transgender, queer pride and justice. The rainbow flag was designed by Gilbert Baker, a gay rights activist from nearby San Francisco, for the 1978 San Francisco Gay Freedom Day Parade. Baker was challenged to design a symbol for the gay pride movement by Harvey Milk, a San Francisco Board of Supervisor and first openly gay elected official in California's history. My personal support for the rainbow flag is rooted in both my personal identity and deeply held value for egalitarianism. I wanted to share another personal story for why I support the rainbow flag. And unfortunately, this story is about a terrorist attack, a shooting that took place on July 27th, 2008 at a Unitarian Universalist church in Knoxville, Tennessee. And the reason why this story matters to me personally is because my current partner survived this shooting. The shooting was carried out by Jim Atkinson during a youth performance of Annie Jr. It was attended by 200 people, and 25 children were performing in the play. He was motivated to carry out an attack against liberalism, which he saw was destroying our culture in part by supporting homosexuality. After Atkinson was arrested, police found his personal manifesto alongside books by right-wingers like Michael Savage, Rush Limbaugh, Bill O'Reilly. And I wanted to just read a super brief excerpt just to clearly demonstrate who he was targeting. In his manifesto, he wrote, "The Unitarian Universalist Church is not a church. It is a cult. They do not even believe in God. They worship the God of secularism. These people are not just liberals, they are ultra-liberals. This is a collection of sick, weird, and homosexual people." So today is 2019. LGBTQ people, queer youth, are facing existential threat. We see more and more shootings. Anyways, just to sort of sum it up, during times like these, I think it's imperative for community leaders to declare unequivocal support for all marginalized people, including the LGBTQ community, and flying the rainbow flag at City Hall or wherever else during Pride Month is one way to do this. So thank you so much for your time.
Thank you, Mr. Chance. Yes, welcome. We're going to have to lower it again now. Or just the microphone is fine, whichever works for you.
We'll give it another shot.
Okay.
All right. Good evening, everybody. Mayor Dunbar, Town Council members. My name is Pablo Zadarine, and I'm the Executive Director at Fairhousing Napa Valley. I'm here, along with the previous speakers, to express our support for Napa's LGBTQ communities, and through the requested recognition, and from what I understand has been an agendized topic, so I thank you for that. Flying the pride flag, the rainbow flag, during the month of June would be extremely significant. As the executive director of an organization dedicated to civil rights and fair housing rights of all people in Napa County, honoring this community and other vulnerable communities in similar manners promotes the inclusivity which is at the core of our missions, of our organization's mission. I also stand here today, though, as a member of the broader Napa community, with like-minded community and organizational leaders and stakeholders to encourage the town to fly and raise the pride flag as well as the transgender flag and honor Napa's LGBTQ community during June, which is also Pride Month. Doing so would further the commitments to inclusive communities that celebrate the diversity within Yountville and Napa County, and would be a strong symbol of the town's support of all vulnerable communities. So thank you for your time, and I appreciate again the agenda of this topic.
Thanks very much. Any other speakers on an item not on our agenda tonight? Can be a different item, just not one on our agenda.
It's a change of subject. My name's Charlie Kanalakis, and my wife and I live at 6749 Jefferson Street. I'm going to read this because I have a tendency to ramble. We built a vacation rental house at 2142 Padroni Street in 2008, right next to our house. It replaces a derelict house, which the town was very pleased to see demolished. Ours is a purpose-built vacation rental. The town approval approve the plans and the use. With the approval, Bob and Sandra, that's Bob Tiernan, and Sandra stressed Yountville's 30-day minimum rental rule. We said we would comply, and we have. We are mostly fully booked. Half our tenants are repeats. We rent on a calendar basis. Turnovers are a pain in the neck, hectic and hard work. Monthly turnovers are quite frequent enough for us. We don't use Airbnb because it is oriented towards short-term rentals. Our target market is retired couples who want to come to Yountville for extended stays. We really have to clean a stove when they vacate, and that should tell you something. They seem to know every maitre d' in Yountville. Some even have favorite tables earmarked here and there. They're out every day circulating all over the valley. Almost all the tenants ship and carry home wine purchased at wine tastings. It is a lucrative market for Yountville's businesses. It is a different market to that of the hotels, spas, and business and B&Bs, and it is right in line with the rest of Yountville's businesses. Now about VRBO and HomeAway, which is the primary issue. VRBO is our primary source of new bookings. The 30-day minimum rental specified in our listing with VRBO allows algorithms to filter out most short-term inquiries. We used to get a lot of short-term inquiries before Expedia took over. The platform is now more sophisticated and the short-term inquiries have died out. Last Wednesday, VRBO pulled the rug out from under us by delisting our house without notice. Our friends Esther and Chris Parks of Chester House on Starkey are having a similar experience. They cannot be here this evening, and they asked me to mention them to you all. Our respective listings have been on and offline since Wednesday. It's been a struggle. Basically, we were told that VRBO no longer accepts listings from Yountville and some other place in Southern California that I forget the name of. The town's demands for quarterly information about bookings, with all due respect to what you're trying to achieve, will not yield the information you seek and need, even if VRBO complies. The information you really need mostly happens off-platform. VRBO is blind to it. Ironically, your strategies may actually push more activities off-platform, and you will be even more blind. In any case, I can tell you that the bookings we do through VRBO are free to search with any browser. No demands to VRBO are necessary. One needs to understand how the website works and how people are gaming the system. No use rushing to legal means to get information. It will just cost you time and money with dubious results, and it will impact our business. I believe, like it or not, you will have to deal with transgressions at source. There's no time to go into this in depth. My only purpose here is to advise you that your activity with our service provider VRBO has had the unintended consequence of directly impacting our compliant rental activities and is damaging us and the town. Please be careful. Thank you for listening.
Thank you very much. No rambling at all. It was very to the point. Thank you. Gary, I don't know if there's the ability to comment, or Steve, maybe very briefly about.
We will actually
this is obviously a very new development through the
we will be able to
rental
provide
platforms.
an update on some communications, what we're doing, and some misinterpretation on the part of the platforms as a part of the council reports.
Okay, so just to be clear, that'll come up hopefully in less than an hour when we get to report, but because it's public comment, we're not really able to get into the details. We have our attorney that will provide a legal opinion about what's happened and potentially why, and we'll try to get into some more details a bit later this evening. So thank you. Anyone else on anything? Can't, I need to hear from you up at the podium if you're going to speak.
I'm just wondering, in order to honor Councilmember Durham's experiences that he wants to share while people are here for this topic, is it possible to switch a little bit the order of the agenda so that he could share his comments now so we could affirm?
We can't talk during public comment on items that are on the agenda. It won't be very long.
Okay.
You're here at a night where you're quite fortunate. We don't
Yeah.
think we're going to be here till 10:30.
Well, I'm planning to stay regardless, but I don't know if my colleagues are able to stay. So that's
Understood, but we just need to ask for your patience so that we can get through our course of business tonight. Thank you. I don't believe we have any other public to comment, so in the interest of time, we are going to move ahead to our consent calendar. We have items 6A through G. I believe our Public Works Director was going to comment on item 6G to make an explanation, and I don't think we need to pull that item. Is that correct, Gary?
No, we don't need to pull it. I also have a brief oral report on item 6D after the Public Works Director has his report.
All right, we'll start with 6G and then go back to 6D, and then we'll vote.
Thank you very much, Mayor, members of the council. Today, in our review of the contract with our town attorney, he discovered that there was some conflict. That conflict was resolved with the red line version that you have before you. We also left some copies on the desk for any members of the audience who would like to look at that. And in general, the potential issue with separate contracts would have created some conflict with state and federal law. That, as I said, has been resolved with our attorney's red line version that is before you on section 3.5, and that will allow us to both have the design and the inspection services we need from this consultant to do the project in the fall for microsurfacing.
And I'm about to ask Gary a question as soon as...
Yes, please, go ahead.
Even though this is, I would say, more than a typo, you don't feel it's necessary for us to handle this item separately. It's more of a clarification of compliance?
That's correct. This can still say on the consent calendar. This is just available for the council's information and also the public should anyone want to see it. It has to do with compliance with conflict of interest provisions and contracting and subsequent contracts. The reason why the amendment is made is to ensure that this contractor can work on a later phase of the project without having to enter into a new contract with that contractor.
I dare you to say contractor one more time.
Contractor.
Okay. Okay, thank you for that explanation. So item 6D.
Yes, 6D. The Brown Act requires an oral report of salaries, fringe benefits, and other benefits of executives before the council acts on it, so I will do so. This is a resolution regarding the town manager's salary following his performance evaluation. As you all know, his employment agreement requires an annual performance evaluation. Following that, there's a possibility of a performance bonus, and it also provides that when other cost of living adjustments or non-merit increases are given to other management employees, that the same be given to the town manager. So the resolution before you does two things. It increases his base salary by 3.5%, which is the same given to other management employees effective July 1, 2019. And it gives him a one-time performance bonus of $7,500 in accordance with his employment agreement as well. I do have one change to this resolution, though. Paragraph 1, following the recitals, the base salary increase should be effective July 1, 2019, and not June 1, 2019. And with that change, staff recommends adoption.
Thank you. Any questions about that oral report? After we vote on this, I think we may have a comment to follow up, but we do have a complete consent calendar that will be, I'll entertain a motion to adopt all items 6A through G with the correction noted on 6D and the red line changes as explained for 6G. Is there a motion?
I'll make that motion to approve the consent calendar with those changes.
Thank you. And a second?
Done.
Councilmember Mueller, was that you?
Yeah.
Okay. All in favor, please vote. All right, and if you're opposed, please vote. That passes unanimously. I just wanted to recognize on behalf of the entire council our great satisfaction and appreciation to our town manager, Steve. Thank you very much. I think you received our feedback already. Just wanted to recognize publicly that we express our unanimous satisfaction with your service to the Yountville, and hope that this represents that satisfaction.
It does, and I continue to be incredibly grateful for the opportunity to live and work in this community and to work with a great team and a great council working to do the things that make Yountville special for all of us.
Thank you. Councilmember Dornbecker?
I do have a question for Gary, and that is in regard to item B, which is about the town council effective upon commencement of the new council member terms following certification,
Sure.
that there will be an increase in our salaries. Do we have to report that in verbally as well?
No.
I see.
So this will not be effective until after the next election. The government code says that you all can increase your salaries, but they can't take effect until after an election. And the next time the general election will occur is in 2020. Simply does it ahead of time.
Thank you.
But no oral reports required.
Thank you.
But you just made one. It just doesn't, like with our open session with Steve, we'll probably talk about this again in November of 2020.
Oh, sure.
Because that's when it'll take effect. Any other comments? Okay, we'll move on after the consent calendar to, we have no administrative regular items. We'll go to our informational report as listed, item 8A.
Thank you, Mayor Dunbar, members of council. We are happy as the Public Works Department in the town to announce this evening that we will be integrating a new policy as a part of our IPM, and that will be we will be moving away from the use of our previous products and moving towards an organic product and a non-Prop 65 product going forward for parks, paths, and open space. Just to give you guys a real high-level overview quickly, pesticide use really highly regulated, both at federal at all levels. The state requires 20 hours of education every 2 years to maintain the one license that we have here in town for one of our staff members. Pesticides are categorized broadly as restricted, unclassified, and general use. All commercial and public agencies using pesticides must register with the county ag commissioner, and each licensed applicator also must register, which we adhere to. The records of use for our products are submitted to the county ag each month with the summary of what we use and the specific information related to that and the conditions of and follow-up if needed. These reports are used closely to track and monitor overall throughout the county the use of pesticides. As you all know, there's what is mostly used in cities and towns is small in comparison to what's used outside in the ag. Nevertheless, it all counts, and the ag commissioner tracks all of it and treats it all with the same level of seriousness that it deserves. 4 categories of labeling: 1 through 4, danger being the highest category. Skull and crossbones is the signal for that, and then 4 with the lowest danger. As I said earlier, we're transitioning to organic and non-Prop 65 products. Non-Prop 65, a Prop 65 product is products that are identified by the state of California to be related to cancer or cause cancer. Signal words describe the acute or short-term toxicity. So caution, warning, and danger. Danger is highly toxic, and the level goes down accordingly, warning and caution. As we had said in previous presentations, the dose makes the poison. So higher dosage makes just about anything toxic, including water if you drink enough of it. There have been some questions regarding other use of alternative products. Vinegar is one of them that keeps coming up. That's used at about a 23 to 25% concentration. At that level, it's known as an acetic acid. It's listed as a type 3 warning. That would be the next label above what we currently, or what we had been using previous to our current use products. So we would have to have full face respirators and Tyvek suits whenever applying a vinegar. The real problem with vinegar is it causes instant burns, permanent damage to the lungs, and vision loss on eye contact immediately. And we're not allowed by law to mix or create our own solution. So having that home remedy just isn't available to us, and it's not real effective. It does burn initially the weed or plant down to the ground, but that doesn't kill. It's not a systemic product, so it doesn't get down into the roots, and it comes back, and we're just back kind of doing it again in a week or two. So we're trying to get away from that. We want solutions that are going to be longer term, going to be systemic. In the recently approved general plan, one of the policies that was incorporated or approved was moving away from glyphosates and into an organic type of product, and that's what we're doing with this move and this announcement this evening. Our current IPM usage, the IPM policy that was approved by council is to use the least amount of product possible to be effective. That's what we've done since I've been here, and we're continuing to do that. As I said, we're currently transitioning to Weed Slayer or an alternative if we find one that's more effective. That's an organic product. And the pre-emergent that we'll use, Spectacle Flow, is a non-Prop 65. Both of these are non-labeled products. So as of this point, barring any other information, much safer to use. I think the one caution that I would have with this product is it's made from clove. So it has a very heavy scent. Other agencies that we've talked to, some of which have discontinued use of the product because of the scent, it's strong. And so it kind of causes some alarm in people. But that's kind of what you get when you use these organic products. That's the trade-off. It's a much safer product, but it does have there's pros and cons to everything. We will continue to use methods and practices for reduction of weeds and invasive species, including drip irrigation, more mulching, hand weeding, and other tools that we find that are effective. And I'm happy to answer any questions you might have on our new use and product.
Thank you. This is an information-only item, so we don't have to vote on it, but comments? Councilmember Dornbecker?
Yes, Joe, in reading the ingredients in each of the other three ingredients that you're going to have to mix with it in order to make it soluble or whatever it is, I realize that there, anything that is a substance like that has some dangerous parts of it. But I want to commend you and thank you for stopping the use of Roundup and because of the glyphosate, and that's a sure cancer-causing agent. So I want to thank you very much. I appreciate it.
Very welcome.
Any other comments about the report? Any members of the public? Yes, please.
I just want to thank the council and thank Joe also for your work on this. And I know there's a county priority as well. And want to encourage you to do public education as well. I know sadly, we have Roundup in our shed from years ago when my husband told me it was safe. And I think the public needs education about what's safe and what's not. And a lot of people are visual. So the visual handout is a download of, this is what's safer would be good. And maybe also a toxic product pickup day. Because I don't remember if we have one of those. Might be good for people to help them exchange garden products or to make others available. I don't know. I'd be interested in helping with that if there's others who are.
Thank you. Joe, do you want to comment on how we're presenting this on our website and with?
Sure, we're going to use all of our normal sources to advertise what we're doing. As I mentioned at our Parks and Rec Advisory Committee meeting, we think modeling the behavior is the best example for changing behavior. Having said that, we will get out on all of our social media sources. We will also be using traditional sources, our newsletter, and the other avenues of communication that are available. And for those who want to drop it off, you can take it up to the hazardous household waste drop-off, or you may be able to even call and have it picked up as a normal part of their, no? Councilmember Moeller.
We have 4 of those a year. It comes in the newsletter with the your garbage bill paid for
All
by
right.
the ratepayers.
There you go. So
Prepaid.
it'll
Prepaid.
the hazardous household waste days will be happy to accept it, and they'll dispose of it appropriately. And we hope that people use the product that they think works best for them and that's safe for them and their families.
Thank you. Any other questions or comments? No. All right. Thank you very much, Joe.
You're welcome.
We don't think we can hear you.
Can you, the short report on the water main break?
As you all are aware, early this morning at about 5 a.m. is when I became aware of it. We had a water main break in the Washington Park neighborhood. This is one of 5 that we've had in the recent past, going back just slightly before I got here. All of those are located on this map. We've had a couple at Jasmine and in between Jasmine, between Forester and Landy, one on Landy, and 2 on Forester. I have a few pictures. So this is from this morning's break. As you can see, it creates a muddy mess. Today's break is symptomatic of what we have seen in other similar breaks in this neighborhood. This one was a valve that the bolts around the valve had corroded, and as a result, the valve kind of blew off the seals, and that's what you see on the ground. In the current spec, we have stainless steel bolts that are required for all of our installations. The installation in this particular subdivision is carbon steel, and it hasn't really done well in this soil for whatever reason. I will say that it's kind of timely in that the town manager and our town attorney have signed a contract that we have been working on for the past couple of weeks to get an assessment done on the water line in this subdivision, because we count on water lines and sewer lines to last about 50 years, and we're well short of that. And with 5 main breaks, we're definitely seeing something that needs to be further investigated, and then devise a plan for repair replacement, which we will bring forward to you all when we have that plan and the results. This is the other 3 or 4 breaks that were on that map. So Landy Way on the top left-hand corner, Forester at Vista was a hole in the pipe. That pipe looks like it's past 50 years old. It's 20 or 25 years old. And then on the lower left-hand corner, you'll see Forester at Jasmine, and then that was at night when that break happened. And then you'll see a hole there in that same location. And then there was another one that actually had water spraying up out of the ground in that same location. So we've had our fair share of main breaks in this neighborhood. We're working very hard to figure out what's going on there. As I said, we have a CIP project that we will be now getting into, doing some, be able to analyze what's going on, and then come back to you with some suggestions on how we can stop this from happening in the future.
And the status of the 2 homes that were affected?
Typically, we got pretty lucky with where this event happened today. 2 homes were affected, as you noted, Mayor. We were able to what we call jumper them off of other homes that had service, and so while it was minimal water service, we were able to continue and give them at least water service to provide the minimal amount of water and be able to flush toilets and that kind of thing, so that they weren't completely out. And the water service is back on. We're pulling a test right now that should be back sometime tomorrow afternoon, and everything will be back to normal after that. And it'll take a couple of weeks probably to get the asphalt repair done.
Thank you. Any other questions from council on the water main? And this is the same neighborhood that we had the lawsuit and found that there was bad product, right, in the pipe, but not all of this could be attributed to that?
Not necessarily. It's partially.
I said not all of this can
Yeah.
be attributed to that, but that's the neighborhood.
The other thing we're finding
neighborhood.
also is that there appears to be a lot of shoddy construction, inappropriate material, and some things that wouldn't be accepted in today's under our
Highly
construction
acidic
standard.
soil, which seems to be causing corrosion, which had they known that, they probably should have put in some cathodic protection to help, if not eliminate, at least diminish the amount of corrosion that you're seeing around those pipes right now.
Yeah, it's only about 22, 23 years maximum.
Yeah, I mean, if you look at that one on the upper right-hand side, that's 50 years old or more, and it's not even close to that age. So there's definitely something going on with the soil, the pipe. There's a lot of we have a lot of questions, and we don't have a lot of answers right now.
Okay.
I appreciate your choice of slides. Thank you.
You bet.
But I do think it's important to realize that this has been something we're working on, and it's also one of the factors that drives utility rates, because what I will point out, if we're going to have to repair this neighborhood's water line 25 years earlier than its life expectancy, that's going to have an impact on, if you're looking at the revenue that we're coming in from a system replacement fee, because we were projecting that to last longer. So it's just, as we look at it, it's something we're going to have to adjust, and it probably will have a dollar sign associated with it.
Okay. Any other staff reports,
Our
information?
last staff report will be a combination from Gary and I, providing you with a brief update with regard to what we know about with what VRBO, HomeAway, and Airbnb have done. There's no PowerPoint presentation, by the way. So the first thing I want
Start
to...
the 3 minutes, Michelle, would you please?
The first thing I want to let everybody know is that when the town started hearing from some of our residents and property owners that they were deactivated, they were sharing with us, in some cases, that they'd received a auto-generated email that just said, due to whatever the town has done, governmental policies, restrictions, we're delisting your property and we're no longer doing business. And again, those messages were sent out by Airbnb, VRBO, HomeAway. They also included communications about how to contact all of the council members and suggest that there be a policy change, as well as the governmental relations account person. When we saw that, we also thought that there was some misinformation in what VRBO, HomeAway, and Airbnb were saying, mischaracterization of the ordinance and the requirements. So we did two things, because one, the council did not, and I'm going to be very clear, the council's ordinance does not ban the use of the platforms. It has some responsibilities for the platform activity, but they're not banned from doing business in Yountville. And so Gary and I crafted an email message that we had for the folks that were calling concerned about what was going on. And then we also, Gary crafted a letter from a legal perspective that addressed that. And then I also sent letters to all of the media contacts and the governmental accounts that they provided. They're not easy to get to a real person. So the good news is our efforts resulted today in finally having a conversation this afternoon with a attorney from Expedia, and Expedia is the parent company of, they call it Verbo, which I've always said VRBO, but it's Verbo according to what she said, and HomeAway. And I'm going to say that the conversation was productive. She appreciated some clarification on the items. I'm going to let Gary talk a little bit more about the legality, but one thing we learned is that our restrictions are not necessarily the problem. They have a prioritization of where they are currently choosing to put their staff and work on, because they shared with us that they are working in Seattle, Portland, San Francisco, and Santa Monica, where they have many more rentals that they're working to get in line. We also shared that there were some ideas they had that if she would put it in writing, we said, yes, this will work with us and it will show that you are working towards the intent of the ordinance, and we'd be willing to confirm that we would accept that. Because they were concerned, ironically, about, they referred to it as two hurdles, a logistical resource issue, and with regard to the transaction activity. And also they did indicate that they were willing to do a mandatory field where the host would put in the information regarding the platform. They actually offered to provide us a monthly report on certain things, not everything, and we said we'd work with it, but I also reminded them that we were actually only requiring quarterly, so we were less restrictive. The good news is that, they're indicating that they're working on, and I will say technically we know this ability exists, a 30-day block so that they can put that in place. Now, she didn't say that. We just happen to know from other sources that it's technically feasible. So the good news is that she's going to meet with some of her other legal teams to see what we can do, because the intent of the town's ordinance was not to penalize those that were properly doing long-term rental registrations, as you heard today. I'll let Gary talk a little bit more about the legality and where they come from on some of those points.
Yeah, Mayor and council members, what I would add to that is the town's ordinance contains identical provisions to those upheld by courts, and that was intentional. Rather than be a test case, the town chose to adopt provisions that had already been decided to be legal under federal and state law. There seems to be no dispute from VRBO, based on our conversation today, over the legality of what the town has done and the sections that are in there. And so the letter that I sent to the legal department simply reiterated what their obligations were under the ordinance, and that the town didn't have any expectations other than exactly what it said they needed to do to comply. The attorney today on the phone seemed to understand that. It did seem to be a logistical issue that they said that it was difficult for staff and it was difficult to comply with the patchwork of requirements that were coming out after the Ninth Circuit decision that upheld the Santa Monica ordinance. So the town is not alone. There are lots of cities throughout the Ninth Circuit, which actually includes California, Oregon, Washington, Idaho, Arizona. It's a huge jurisdiction. And so there are a lot of cities that are taking similar steps. Town's just one of them, and I think these companies are juggling on where to put their efforts right now.
Okay. Questions from the council? Councilmember Durham?
So to clarify, the reason it sounds like they've turned off Yountville is because they have to deal with these larger cities first, and they have made those larger cities where they've been dealing with nonstop court actions and issues to correct that and then be able to bring Yountville on with their new policies. Is that correct?
Yes, it sounds like they're focusing on larger markets as a business decision. Yes.
And then to also clarify, they made that decision. VRBO, or Expedia, as parent company of VRBO, and HomeAway made the decision to turn off Yountville, not because of our actions, but because of work that they're doing, and they have plans to make changes moving forward.
That's correct. And in fact, the town's ordinance is less onerous than what many other cities are doing. So to the extent they're complying in the larger jurisdictions, they should also be able to comply here.
I would also say they indicated, I think, a sincerity on their part to look at it, and since we'd outreached, it was a very good half-hour conversation, so I'm optimistic. Now, on the other hand, I will also share, we have not heard yet back from Airbnb. There's been no response from Airbnb, and we did another cycle of email inquiries because there's no real person to get a hold of. So, we've left it saying, our intent is not to penalize the people. Our intent is not to not have you do your platform. So I think they took that to heart, and I think, we're expecting maybe a communication later yet this week or early next week with a goal of perhaps being able to reactivate. We also shared that they have a larger share of the long-term vacation rentals on VRBO as opposed to Airbnb. So we're trying to advocate where we can within the consistent and recognizing, and I think they're getting it, that there's some information sharing that they're trying to protect, but there's also some information sharing that the courts are saying, we need. And I want to remind everybody, our hotels that operate in Yountville have to provide a monthly report detailing the transactions and the revenue collection. So in this particular case, there's no disagreement from the legal staff that what we're actually asking for is not something they can't do. It's just a prioritization of how and when they choose. Because, for example, they are remitting TOT to communities that have TOT transaction. So if you think about that, you've got to be transacting and capturing all of that and reporting it in order to submit it. We don't allow anything less than 30 days, and if you're over 30 days, you don't have to collect TOT. Our report is simply pretty simple. Who had a transaction? What are the permit numbers? And they had some conversations, and there's some things that we think we can work with them. So we're optimistic, not so optimistic with Airbnb.
So would it be fair to say, in our previous speaker about this issue, for example, somebody that has repeat visitors with, you would have their contact information. They're absolutely welcome to reach out and rent off-platform to continue being able to be active.
Absolutely, because I do want to remind everybody, long-term vacation rentals happened before the internet. So it's just it's one of a media choice. We have real estate companies that have vacation rental divisions, Craigslist. I'm just saying there are a lot of other alternatives that a person can utilize to market and promote. We do realize that for some, their choice of VRBO, HomeAway, and Airbnb is simpler, or maybe takes less work, but we're not stopping their business model. It's just their partner that they're choosing to work with needs to honor our requirements. No different than we have many business requirements for a lot of businesses that operate in town. Restaurants, tasting rooms, and hotels to come to mind. So this is, so I think we're going to see some movement, hopefully, and we'll have a more definitive. And then we've already been in touch. Mr. Kanalakis has been in touch with staff, so we shared with him the communication, and we'll share what we're doing with other that have known, and hopefully we'll have something positive to report in the next couple of weeks.
And we certainly understand the sensitivity of the timing of it, that you're losing business, you're losing money, and it's unfortunate that the corporate platforms have taken this approach, as Councilmember Durham, I think, has identified, and you have in your own business to deal with this as well, that it's just easier for them from a workload perspective, it sounds like, to not worry about the smaller populations and handle the big cities where they have more accounts and try to deal with them first. So that's an unfortunate choice, and they'll continue to hear from our folks about that. Any other questions or comments from the council? Any other informational items, Steve?
No.
Thank you. So in the interest of the folks in the audience, I'd invite Councilmember Durham as our first report for council reports and comments. If you'd like to talk about the work you've already done about the Pride Flag presentation.
Thank you. I just wrote a couple of short sentences just to ask the council that we add an agenda item for the June 4th, 2019 Town Council meeting to discuss raising the LGBTQI flag in Yountville. I'm asking that we consider the flag be displayed aside with or the American and California flag and not as a temporary replacement. I would ask that the flag be flown in the final weeks of June as a show of support to the 50th anniversary of Stonewall in New York as well. I got some interesting, a bunch of interesting statistics from LGBTQ Connections, which is based in Napa, which if we agree to have this on the agenda, I would like to share further. But one item that really responded to me was they did a needs assessment in 2013, and they found that visibility and recognition, which includes raising the rainbow flag, was the number one thing that 500 plus respondents asked for from our local elected officials that would make our community better. So, and that's exactly the reason I wanted to do this in the first place. In our community, we have the Veterans Home, and we have our school, and we have our residents. I think it's important to show our support and to be known and to show to all who come through Yountville as well that we support them. It's especially, it's interesting. I was reflecting on why I felt like this was the time to do it, whereas I hadn't asked for it or had this discussion before, and to respond to what some of the speakers said as well. It's 2019, but the times are definitely feel a little different. And through one of my companies, my husband has chosen to give part of our proceeds in the month of June to the It Gets Better project, and all you need to do is spend about 10 minutes on that website to realize how important visibility is. So if this item's added to the agenda, I would be happy to further discuss all of these important issues further, and I want to thank you all on the council for your consideration.
Thank you. Hold on just a sec. Any questions or comments about Councilmember Durham's comment?
Well,
Councilmember Dornbecker?
Yes. I would like to say that I support Councilmember Durham's suggestion that we agendize this. I remember well meeting Mrs. Starr in the 1990s when I was at KKHI Radio. I interviewed her as one of the co-founders of PFLAG, and I thought she was so brave. At the time, it was not a time when, it was at a time. I lived in San Francisco. I lived in the Castro district, and I knew quite a few people whose families had turned their back on them. So the fact that this mom was out talking about, families and friends supporting gay, lesbian, and transsexual children meant a lot. So I brought it on a classical music radio station. So I'm very happy to bring it to our council to approve, hopefully.
Thank you. Any other comments? So Councilmember Mueller.
We need a majority. Don't we do this in the official
Yes,
head shake?
We're getting there.
Okay.
We're getting there.
Let me give you a little structure.
We haven't gotten to the part about actually asking for it to be agendized yet.
Okay.
So I need to clarify what will be coming forward if you choose to move forward with consensus. You'll actually be getting 2 items. One will be approval of a policy regarding display of non-governmental flags and establishing, if you move forward, I'll work with the council member, because in most cases we would be looking at, similar to Calistoga, we've researched Calistoga. Calistoga has a ceremonial flag that's been added to the grounds so that it doesn't detract from the already established flags and situations. So that's a model that we can look at here very easily. And then the second would be, if you adopt the policy, would then be consideration of the rainbow flag, transgender flag, because in most cases the policies require the council to adopt. So I just want you to know it'll be a 2-step process, and I'll work with, if you move forward, I will work with Councilmember Durham on a little bit of the details and the proposal to have for you.
And I would suggest that we, even though I like to poke fun at all the ad hoc committees that we put together on various things, that we add a second council member to that effort to kind of thoroughly vet all the angles. Because I don't know that it's necessary, but because we're talking about policy and not just a single
It is. My only
item.
concern is to have this on the June 4th in order to be timely, and we don't have an item adding the ad hoc committee. So that's what I'm noodling. So.
Well, you can invite a second council member to participate in the conversation.
Yeah, we'll do it
Without-
that way.
without
We'll do
an ad
it.
hoc committee.
So it will not be a formal ad hoc, but
I don't think you're going to have a hard time finding a second person that's going to want to be a part of that conversation. So principally, it's about creating a policy first.
correct.
And that's the only hesitation about this, because there are numerous advocacy organizations. We just have to be sure that we're applying fairly to anyone that's interested.
And what I'm saying, there are some samples. We do have the information from Calistoga and St. Helena to look at, so there's some places for us to start. And I would say that, staff has that. We've been in anticipation of this, working towards that. But in recognizing, that's why I say typically sometimes we'd be a little bit earlier so that we'd have more time. But that's why I'm saying you're going to need the policy adoption and then the consideration of the request in order to have time for us to potentially install the ceremonial flagpole and have a few weeks of June yet left to display it.
There's more work to be done in terms of what dates we're talking about, location we're talking about. In this particular case, it's a flag that's being requested. Other advocacy organizations may not have a flag. They may have another way to display it. So that kind of language is what we need to consider for the policy. That's kind of what I'm getting at. So Now, I'd invite, yes, Debbie or any other members of the public who would like to comment.
So I just want to reiterate, upon reflection with Jeff, we both sort of realized that the flagpole here, because it's here, right, at this building, is a little more off the beaten track than like how people visit the City Hall in Napa as part of the center of town for a lot of activities in their community. So I'm wondering if we get around a little part of this as far as for this year by just, in addition, asking for hanging of a banner, rainbow banner, like people are wearing rainbow stickers, is a symbol, whether it's a official flag, whether it's a banner, a T-shirt, you know, it means the same thing. And so we hang banners all the time at the town community center. So what about that? Is that something that needs a policy or already has a policy?
So I'm going to suggest that you bring your ideas to Councilmember Durham and our staff, because we
Okay.
can't get into the discussion of it now since it isn't agendized.
Sure.
Bring all the ideas that you have about the creative ways that this could be displayed, and that'll get evaluated by staff. And if it fits the policy, that's certainly another way to do it in addition to.
Well, I'm suggesting a parallel process. If there's already a policy about banners, I would really appreciate before waiting all the way until June to find out, and maybe I can just inquire to someone.
I would encourage you to contact our town manager, and he
Gotcha.
can help you with that.
Okay, thanks.
And I just make sure when you're trying to reach me, Debbie, don't use Steve Potter.
I know, I saw that. I have two Steve friends who are managers. I saw that only later.
So
I think that was a first for
good
me,
news is
but
he ultimately forwarded that and said, "I think it's yours."
yeah, I had the other I had the council members on it, but yeah, that was pretty funny. I was like, oops.
Yeah, thank you. Yes.
My only comment has to do with the policy and hoping that it is available for the June 4th vote. In Napa, they did decide to put up banners rather than putting up the flag, and I will definitely say that that was not the same. It felt like a defeat to have the city say that they could not do it and they would instead do a banner. We understand that that still displays some inclusivity, but the fact that it's not displayed by the city government was painful at that time and continues to be a sore topic. So we hope that on June 4th you're able to bring both of those topics up to vote, even if that means you enact the policy first so that you can actually take on or decide whether you're going to fly the flag or not. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other comments on this item? Okay, so we've had the request by Councilmember Durham to agendize this item. Typically, we would need at least 3 of our members to agree that it be agendized. I think the timeliness of it makes sense that it would be the June 4th agenda. Staff has, I believe, agreed that that is time enough to put together a draft policy for consideration and whatever type of options for consideration of a display.
Thank you, Mayor. I also want to be really clear. In order to meet the June 4th agenda, the staff report, policy, recommendations, and everything need to be done by next Tuesday.
Understood. So with that, Councilmember Durham.
That's the only time the government moves quickly, isn't it? That's fine. We can do it.
It's agenda time, yep. There's a deadline in order to meet the Brown Act.
What happens to be when the request came in, we could have talked about this 6 months ago potentially. So.
And there's a holiday in there too.
So,
And that's why I'm indicating I haven't, I have some stuff to work off of, but we do need to move quickly.
Very good.
So
understood.
Is there consensus from at least 3 of us? I believe there is, but just to confirm it, that this be agendized.
When we do the head nodding?
Okay.
Yes.
We are in agreement that we're going to agendize this for June 4. We will have a policy, draft policy that is presented first, and then the specific request. Again, please tell anyone else that is interested in this, if they have ideas for Yountville in particular, or ways that we can incorporate everyone's interest. We're not going to guarantee that we're going to do them all. Understand what you talked about with the city of Napa. One of our challenges, though, is to be as representative and balanced with all of the advocacy efforts that we do. And so I'm just guessing that might be where that fell for the city. I don't mean to speak for them. But yes, we'll be looking forward to having you back here on June 4 to be a part of that conversation. So So thank you for sharing your thoughts tonight. Other Councilmember Durham, do you have any other reports since we've started with you tonight?
Thank you.
I can jump back up to our regular rotation here. There was no Flood Control Water Conservation District meeting. If the Vice Mayor would like to report out on our Napa Valley Transportation Authority meeting.
Thank you, Mayor. We did meet last week, and the high points were we reviewed third quarter finances and operations and also looked at our budget, short-term and long-term. We had a very interesting presentation regarding the very nascent possibility of a smart train from Novato to Suisun City that could include one or more Napa Valley stops. We approved the purchase of 4 buses that can be split duty between our paratransit route and our regular route. And we also approved an addition to the contract with our financial advisor to look at financing for 3 projects. The maintenance facility, which has been on the table for some time, the Soskell Junction upgrades, which is more of a construction project, and the purchase of electric buses, which we do have a mandate to have electric buses by 2025. And in particular, the buses, we're looking at them now because it would allow us to leverage some grant money that's available now, and we could sort of loan ourselves the money, get the grant money, pay it back. So, but again, none of that was approved. It was simply authorizing the look at the broad-based financing vehicles that might be available.
I think it was $1 billion for that smart train extension, if I remember correctly. So,
Which means 3.
There are funding options, but not $1 billion worth of funding options. So, Upper Valley, I don't even know if I want to. Upper Valley Waste Management Authority, what's on fire, what's leaking, and what's blown up?
First, we had a very successful townwide cleanup day that we use revenue that we get from our JPA contracts to pay for. That was good. We only had one person that I know of that put way too much stuff out. We took half of it, but then they had to pay for the rest. On to, since I talked about what was going on 2 weeks ago, quickly, we've had a chemical explosion. We had a green winery place some chemicals. They actually hid them in the bed of the truck of the trash that they took up there, and then they dumped them, and then the Land Rover who was pushing it over the cliff ran over it, and they exploded. We immediately, some of the county hazmat type people went over to the winery and they're having discussions. A few days after that, we found that we had radioactivity exposure. What happened there? Since we had all this leachate, they've been purchasing tanks to take all the leachate and get it away from the creek and fill up the tanks. We found out that the tanks came with radioactivity in them, so that is being dealt with by a different division within the county. And then we did meet yesterday. The first thing we heard was that the family went to court, the Pistone family, and the judge until July put Sylvia Pistone is replacing Bob Pistone, and Linda Pistone is now the VP, and Christy, who we all know is going to be the acting COO. We have a new site manager, and we're hoping for a lot of good things with new management. Also, at our meeting yesterday, we made the decision we usually increase rates in July. We're going to delay that by a quarter just to figure out, there's a lot of money being spent fixing the landfill, the JPA's time. A lot of time is going into dealing with this issue. So we'll probably set the rates later in the third quarter of this year. They'll be retroactive to July. And a great announcement, the JPA also appointed our own Gary Bell, who's going to be, and his firm, who's going to be a consultant to help help our JPA review our Upper Valley, our UVDS, and our Clover Flat landfill contracts. So, we've been busy.
Unfortunately. Okay, thank you. Other reports, I'll give three. The first one relates to the League of California Cities North Bay Division meeting was held, and several of us were in attendance. Senator Scott Wiener, who until that morning had been probably the leader of housing legislation working through Sacramento. That very morning of our lunch meeting, his Senate Bill 50 was held in committee, which basically put it on hold for at least the rest of this year, which was quite a surprise. It was the most visible and talked about housing legislation that was moving forward. Now that may be replaced by Assembly Bill 1279 from Assemblymember Bloom. A lot of the same housing-related topics content are included, and it has a few new ones that are still being vetted. But there'll still be significant housing legislation moving forward as things are coming out of the Appropriations Committee process. The Vice Mayor and I just this morning had a very good hour-plus conversation with staff from the Metropolitan Transportation Commission and Association of Bay Area Governments about housing development at the Veterans Home and how they, MTC and ABAG, could potentially support the town and Calvet in making that happen, which was a very encouraging conversation. I want to thank the Vice Mayor and also our council colleague to the north in St. Helena, Anna Cotreau, who was on the MTC Housing Task Force Committee and helped kind of organize the conversation. So, Vice Mayor, thank you again for that. Also, I'm meeting next week with members of the League of California Cities staff and the Department of General Services staff to talk specifically about the Veterans Home housing project and also statewide housing development, in particular on excess state property. So hopefully that will be productive and help move the conversation forward also. Did you have anything else to add about our conversation today? Thank you. The last thing that I want to bring up that I think you're all aware of now, I have tried to make this public as quickly and as loudly as possible in the last couple of days. It's come to my attention that Yountville Elementary School is yet again in a state of, I don't even want to say limbo. It's at risk of being closed due to budget cuts by the Napa Unified School District. They have a Board of Trustees meeting coming up. Well, there's one on Thursday, this Thursday, and there are one agenda item on that agenda deals with enrollment numbers of all the schools in the district, and that would appear to be significant data that is being used to consider closure not only of Yountville Elementary but also of Mount George. Those are the two smallest enrollment schools in the district, under 300 students, and so in that category they have repeatedly been targets of consideration for closure. Our community has been successful in the past to make sure that that does not happen to our one and only school, but we have to yet again have conversations to try to convince the Board of Trustees and the district not to close Yountville. I do, and along with the Vice Mayor, we've been asked to meet with Dr. Massetti, the superintendent. I believe we have a date that's, I'm not sure if it's confirmed, but it's in about a week prior to the June 13th Board of Trustees meeting. I've also informed Congressman Thompson, Senator Dodd, Assemblymember Aguiar Curry, County Supervisor Chair Gregory, and our Supervisor Diane Dillon, making sure they're all aware of the situation. I don't want to overreact, but I certainly don't want to underreact, especially given the timing. It appears for consideration that at the June meeting there may be consideration for creating a review committee that is required by bylaws, law, whatever it is for the district, a review committee that would evaluate and make a recommendation to the board on school closures. It's a requirement, apparently. So we want to make sure that any of us interested, the town and others, have the opportunity to contact any members of the Board of Trustees, as well as the superintendent's herself and staff, to share our thoughts and concerns about their plans. Nothing is done yet, but we've learned in the past that we need to be vocal and provide creative alternatives if that's the case. So I bring that up for everyone's digestion and consideration. So anyway, those are the informational items I have. Any other items, Vice Mayor?
Thank you. Just to piggyback onto the school board meeting, it is tomorrow evening at 7 p.m. at 2425 Jefferson Street. So, and I know they video it. I don't know if they live stream it or if it is live on any other media anywhere, but I will certainly be either watching for it or there.
I believe that is on Thursday, though.
I'm sorry, yes, the 23rd. Thank you. Thursday, the 23rd.
And do you have a time on that?
7 p.m. They will go into open session.
Thank you. Okay, I believe that does take care of our business tonight. I will entertain a motion to adjourn to our special meeting, which is a budget workshop this Thursday, May 23rd at 1:30. If there is such a motion.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Good night, everyone. Thank you.